Good evening, I'm Dennis Ward. Welcome to APTN National News. We begin in Kenora, where a second person has been charged in relation to the death of a Grassy Narrows First Nation man in Northern Ontario. 21-year-old Mikai Pelly was reported missing last month and later confirmed deceased by Ontario Provincial Police. 24-year-old Terrence Cherry of Kenora had initially been charged with committing an indignity to a dead body. He has now been charged with first-degree murder. Police also say 43-year-old Una Cherry of Kenora has been charged with accessory after the fact murder. Both are remanded in custody and due to appear in court on December 4th. The OPP continued to search for the remains of Pelly. He was last seen between October 10th and 12th in Kenora, Ontario. The Treaty 3 Police Service, the Kenora Makwa Patrol, and community members continue to help search for Pelly's body. The opening of a controversial 72-hour forced detox facility in Winnipeg has been delayed due to concerns. The holding center is part of the Manitoba government's new legislation focused on addressing the, quote, growing meth crisis across the province. Manitoba Premier Wab Kinew says the opening of what he calls a protective care center will now be sometime in December, after its original two-week timeline of late November became impractical. Located in Winnipeg's downtown core, the center will see people high on substances and causing public disturbances put in holding units for a maximum of 72 hours. It intends to offer detainees a safe place to come down, health assessments, and addiction support. Kinew says the regulations and permits are in place, but concerns from healthcare professionals and community organizations who work with people on drugs have called for more caution.
We're taking a serious step to keep people safe in the community from the impacts of meth. And as a result, the physicians and healthcare folks, the social organizations like Main Street Project that we're working with on this are asking that we get the right training in place, the right protocols. And when we're talking about something serious is depriving people of the ability to leave this center for 3 days, I think it's important that we get those things right.
Kinew says media should be invited to tour the facility early next week, and we will bring you more on this developing story then. A proposed mine in the Yukon is headed into the territory's highest and most rigorous form of review. The mining corporation behind it hopes that review will show that it's a sophisticated project with big benefits. But as Sarah Connors tells us, one impacted First Nation and an environmental group aren't so sure.
It would be one of the biggest mines ever built in the Yukon. The Casino Mining Corporation is the company behind the proposed Casino Mine, an enormous open-pit copper-gold project in west-central Yukon.
We're talking about a mine that over 27 years can generate $44 billion of GDP to Canada.
Last month, the company submitted its Environmental and Socioeconomic Statement, or ESE, to the Yukon Environmental and Socioeconomic Assessment Board, more commonly known as YESEB. The submission is the first step in the panel review process. Spanning over 20,000 pages, it details potential impacts of the mine and how the company plans to address them.
We certainly think we've put forward something very thoughtful and in-depth.
Casino is the first mine to ever undergo a panel review. That's because YESEB flagged the mine's complex heap leach and tailings design and its potential impact on the classic caribou herd. An independent panel will eventually review the company's proposal, hold public hearings, and make a recommendation to decision makers about whether the project should go ahead.
Safe to say the bar for us is the highest of anyone, and that's fair, as it should be. This is a very important project to get right.
Benefits is good, but it only lasts this long.
But others have concerns, like the Little Salmon Carmacks First Nation and Carmacks. An access road leading to the mine would go through their settlement land. Chief Russell Blackjack is worried that increased road activity will drive away wildlife like caribou and moose, impacting subsistence hunting.
There's the environmental and pressure that we're going to feel when the road opens.
Even as a layperson, it's easy to spot gaps and inadequacies.
Environmental group CPAWS Yukon is also raising concerns. Its conservation manager feels the ESE shows its heap leach facility and tailings dam design aren't up to par, and the language used is overly optimistic. Newton worries there could be a repeat of last year's Eagle gold mine heap leach disaster, which saw hundreds of millions of liters of cyanide solution spilled into the surrounding environment.
I'm not saying they're the same facility, but that confident language and not really interrogating those risks is not serving anyone.
Casino CEO understands people have concerns, but argues its mine will be embedded with best practices it's eager to showcase during the panel review.
I think if you look at it in totality, our expectations that Yukoners will understand how it's come to be and hopefully see value in it.
Now that Casino has submitted the ESE, YESUB has up to 60 days to decide if it has enough information to proceed to the panel review. If it gets the green light, the next step will be the selection of panel members, a process that likely won't be completed until April 2026 at the earliest. Sarah Connors, APTN National News, Carmax.
Thanks, Sarah. Now to the Northwest Territories, where video journalist Bruce Dela Cruz had a rare opportunity to tour the Giant Mine remediation project just outside the city, and shares his findings in this report.
Yellowknife's Giant Mine operated from 1948 to 2004, extracting over 7 million ounces of gold from the area. However, 237 tons of highly toxic arsenic trioxide was left behind when Royal Oak Mines, the mine's owner, went bankrupt in the 90s, forcing the mine to close and creating an environmental disaster. Today, the Giant Mine Remediation Project is a joint venture between the federal and territorial governments to manage the arsenic waste and see to its long-term care. Journalists in Yellowknife were given a tour of the mine this month and were given updates on several ongoing projects, including the new water treatment plants that will remove arsenic from contaminated mine water before it goes into Great Slave Lake.
We began construction in 2023. We awarded the contract, and so we're in year 3 of construction.
Natalie Plato is Deputy Director of the Giant Mine Remediation Project. She says the new treatment plant replaces the current system in place since 1981 and will have effluent levels of the discharged mine water meet drinking water requirements. This was at the request of the Yellowknives Dene First Nation, as their proximity to the mine raises their concern of contamination.
Effluent treatment plant pumps water from the underground and stores it, and then seasonally we treat it and discharge it to Baker Pond and Baker Creek. The new water treatment plant, we will meet the new effluent criteria for the new water license for the Giant Mine Remediation Project, which has much more stringent discharge criteria. And we will also be continually pumping the water from the underground 24/7, 365 days a year. So the treatment discharge period will be continuous.
Currently, the city of Yellowknife and Yellowknives Dene receive their drinking water from the Yellowknife River upstream before the river passes the Giant Mine and enters Great Slave Lake. Plato continues with more input the Yellowknives Dene had on other areas of the project, including how finely crushed rock left over from processing gold or tailings would be disposed.
A significant one we heard from the Yellowknives Dene First Nation was they wanted the site to remain gray and ugly, so people would remember in future generations that there was a mine here. Normal practice in tailings rehabilitation or reclamation is to vegetate a tailings cover. In this case, we went with a rock cover, so the tailings will remain rocky and they will not be revegetated, so people can remember that there's tailings there.
Plato sees the continued input from the Yellowknives Dene and other Indigenous peoples as a must-have for the remediation project, in order to take better steps together to clean up the mine's toxic legacy.
We are on the traditional lands of the Yellowknife Standing First Nation, the Cleacho and the North Slave, and that we should keep them involved and make sure they agree with the remediation plan going forward, because to be honest, they weren't consulted originally when the mine opened, so I think it's a really significant step we're taking to make sure they're involved in the remediation.
The new water treatment plant is expected to be operational by 2027, with the entire remediation project to be completed by 2038. Ongoing monitoring to continue in perpetuity. Bruce De La Cruz, APTN National News, Yellowknife.
Thanks, Bruce. Still to come tonight, reaction in Nunavut to one of the Carney government's major projects. Stick around. Welcome back. Prime Minister Mark Carney announced 5 of his, quote, nation-building projects this week, including, as expected, a new hydroelectric facility northwest of Iqaluit. Crown Indigenous Services Minister Rebecca Alty spoke about the project in Iqaluit. Justin Hardy has more.
Our government will be referring the Iqaluit Nuukikatsaotit Hydro Power Project to the Major Projects Office.
The hydro generation facility is expected to cost roughly $500 million and is to be built on the Kugeluk River, about 60 kilometers northeast of Iqaluit. Right now, Iqaluit, like all Nunavut communities, relies on diesel-generated power, which requires roughly 15 million liters of fuel per year. All of that needs to be shipped into the community.
This project will replace the city's reliance on diesel-generated electricity with affordable, reliable, and emissions-free power. And as it's built, it will create hundreds of good jobs here in Iqaluit. Once operational, it will cut greenhouse gas emissions by 130,000 tons every year.
Nunavut has been working toward this project for 17 years. It's seen $10 million of federal investment since 2022. Nunavut Premier PJ Akiaguk says this announcement is another advancement for the relationship between the territory and Canada.
This commitment marks a major step towards Iqaluit and for Nunavut. By including the Iqaluit hydroelectric project on the list of major nation-building projects, Canada is showing that Nunavut infrastructure priorities are national priorities.
This does not mean the project is approved, only that the process to approval will move along quicker. Construction on the facility could start as early as 2028, but the timeline to completion will depend on further study and input from the community.
This is a community-led, and we need to listen to our people, and we have to listen to their concerns, issues that they may rise. So it will depend on how the communities and the people feels about this. And like I said earlier, it would be able to be fast-tracked depending on the community's community consent.
Justin Hardy, APTN National News, Iqaluit.
Attendees of the United Nations Climate Change Conference, also known as COP30, say security has tightened since Indigenous land protectors stormed the gates of the summit to try and take part in the conference. As Angel Moore reports, they say the green energy promoted by COP30 is not so green.
On the second day of COP30 in Belém, Brazil, security stopped Indigenous people of the Amazon from entering the summit. Inside, world leaders are developing policies to fight climate change. Edswan Krenak witnessed the confrontation, and the mood has since changed.
What we unfortunately have seen since yesterday, this entire week, actually, the huge militarization of this COP. The military forces has been framing the place as not a place to go freely, to negotiate, to fight for justice, but really to scare people, to give them don't protest here, don't demand anything here, because we are going to stop you.
The week began with the opening ceremonies with the hope that world leaders are addressing climate change. But Indigenous rights advocate Jalma Hamali Gonzalez says Indigenous peoples need to be part of negotiations.
For me, it's a symptom. It's a sign of a country attempting to posture itself as a global leader in climate adaptation while refusing to listen to the very people who have protected the forests and sustained life and protect and defend Mother Earth for millennia.
COP30 is promoting green energy, but Gonzalez says his traditional lands have been sacrificed for electric vehicles with the rise of mining for lithium. According to the International Energy Agency, the global demand for critical minerals is expected to quadruple by 2040.
So we are already faced mining looking for gold, mining looking for diamonds, but there is something very interesting and very different about lithium, because there is a narrative, a global narrative saying lithium is crucial. It's crucial to just transition. It's crucial to have a better future.
As Indigenous people protest on the streets of Belém to protect Mother Earth, Krenak is at COP30 as the Brazil Program Manager for Cultural Survival, a nonprofit that advocates for Indigenous people's rights. He says they are raising awareness about the falsehoods of energy transitions and the mining needed to support green energy.
These electric cars, the huge concentration of the benefits of the electric cars industry is focused on the so-called global north. In the places where the minerals are extracted, we see everything I just mentioned to you. Poverty, inequality, and environmental harms.
COP30 wraps up on November 21st. Angel Moore, APTN National News, Jabotuk, also known as Halifax.
Quebec's music industry handed out its major awards, and a former AFN regional chief has been honored by the CFL. Those stories are coming up after the break. Welcome back. Time now for our photo of the day. The Northern Lights were visible across much of Canada on Wednesday. Our Sav Jones caught this amazing view over the skyline of Winnipeg, Manitoba. In spite of the city's bright lights, the Aurora Borealis was in full effect. Thanks for sharing, Sav. If you'd like to be featured as our next photo of the day, send those photos to share@aptn.ca. Now let's take a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. Starting on the East Coast, +2 in Halifax, 1 above for Fredericton. -1 for Kuujjuaq, cloudy, and 3 in Nain. +1 in Montreal, 1 above with flurries for Val-d'Or. 7 in Sault Ste. Marie, cloudy, and +2 for Ottawa. Sun's out and 7 for Thunder Bay, 3 and cloudy in Sioux Lookout. -1 for God's Lake and Norway House. Sunny and 5 above in Winnipeg, +2 under sunny skies for Dauphin. Sunny and 4 for Regina and Saskatoon, 1 above in North Battleford. 0 in Meadow Lake, sunny and -8 in Stony Rapids. In northern Alberta, -7 for High Level and Fort Chipewyan. 1 in Edmonton, sunny, and 12 for Lethbridge. 10 with showers in Vancouver, 9 for Kamloops. 4 in Prince George and Smithers, -1 in Dease Lake. -26 in Old Crow, 5 below in Whitehorse. -11 for Yellowknife, 18 below in Norman Wells. -17 in Sax Harbor, 14 below for Paulatuck. 0 for Chesterfield, Whale Cove, and Arviat. -11 in Resolute, 5 below for Iqaluit. Quebec's music industry galas were held in Montreal last week. For many Indigenous artists, it was their first nomination at Le Desk, Quebec's version of the Junos. Our Stephanie DeSève was on the red carpet at the first gala.
Je suis vraiment bien balancée, ancrée, puis la famille nous ramène tout le temps à l'essentiel, à l'humilité, puis fait que je suis vraiment bien dans tout ce qui se passe.
That's how Soleil Lonière reacted to being honored with her nominations, a major recognition of her work. She was the first Indigenous artist to win Les Francs Ouvertes in 2024, a competition for new voices in music.
Je suis nommée aujourd'hui pour spectacle de l'année, artiste, spectacle de l'année langue autochtone et autres langues. Fait que pour mon projet, mais il y a aussi un projet dans lequel j'ai fait partie, Héritière, qui est aussi nommé ce soir, fait que c'est super.
The multidisciplinary artist from Maastricht has just celebrated an important birthday.
Hey, j'ai eu 40 ans cet été. Ouais, merci.
40 years is how long the Himujwit group has been playing together. 35 to be precise.
This is coming out of the blue that we did not even expect at least a nomination.
Hailing from their small community in Inukjuak, the 4 members of the group were surprised by their nomination. Their self-titled debut album was nominated in the Best Album in Indigenous Language category. Their songs in Inuktitut were written in their younger years.
We finally had the opportunity to record them recently, and they finally got out maybe after 20 years.
The band is made up of Charlie, Paul, Eric, and Joby. Their retro sound is inspired by Inuit artists they loved in the 60s and 70s, such as Charlie Adams. They have never been able to make a living from their art, which is why they have not released an album until now.
I was working in the past like mining. Like I was 3 weeks on, 2 weeks off for 17 years. Now finally I finished my job and I have a chance to play with them more often.
Singer-songwriter Sagi Ottawa also received his first ever nomination in the same category.
Je l'ai partagé avec ma petite famille, ma femme, mes enfants, mes parents, mes soeurs, mon frère, puis ainsi de suite, là. Puis disons qu'on a fêté un petit peu.
After 20 years of making music, the nomination happened just at the right time. Because that evening, Sagi carried someone special in his heart.
Mon frère Pinaskin qui est disparu depuis 15 ans. Je sais pas, là, mais on dirait qu'il est avec moi ce soir.
His entire family drove 4 hours down from Manawan to support him on his big night. But the big surprise of the night is Himujwit winning Best Indigenous Album of the Year with their debut effort.
Shocking! Shocking! I think I'm sneaking.
Their fans in Nunavik showed their enthusiasm for this victory, which was as unexpected as the nomination.
We've been playing in front of our community members for a very long time.
Additionally, Elisepi and her team also won 4 awards for Inuktitut, including Show of the Year, Variety Performance, Musical Comedy, and Indigenous Artist of the Year at Sunday's Gala. Stéphanie Desev for APTN National News, Montreal.
Congrats to the winners there. The 112th Grey Cup goes down in Treaty 1 territory this Sunday. The Montreal Alouettes will face off against the Saskatchewan Roughriders. There's been a number of parties and ceremonies ahead of the game in Winnipeg, and today a former AFN regional chief for Manitoba was honored. Kevin Hart, a member of the Nissequawayasik Cree Nation in northern Manitoba, was announced as the recipient of the 2025 Canadian Football League Alumni Association's Indigenous Community Champion Award, which recognizes an individual who has made a lasting impact on Indigenous youth and communities through football, leadership, and advocacy. Hart, who served 2 terms as AFN Regional Chief for Manitoba, is also a member of the Football Manitoba Hall of Fame, the first Indigenous inductee, and previously served as the President and CEO of Indigenous Football Canada. The CFLAA said his influence has been instrumental in promoting inclusion and positive change through the power of football with Canada's Diversity Task Force. Hart, reacting to the award, said not bad for a poor res kid from humble beginnings, and dedicated the award to Indigenous boys and girls across the country. And a huge congrats to Kevin on that honor. That's all the time we have for your APTN National News for this Friday. You can catch up on any news you may have missed tomorrow in this time slot on APTN National News Weekend. For news anytime, you can visit our website, aptnnews.ca. I'm Dennis Ward. Marcy Miigwech, thanks for being with us. Have a great night.